Okay, so it's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. Warm for some folks, not so warm for other folks, especially folks south of the equator. And you are spending it indoors yet again, out of the sun, with a bunch of enthusiasts. I think that's the nicest thing that I can call us. We don't have an agenda, but I am going to ask Jeff if he's ready to do a demo of some new toys that are coming soon. Jeff, are you able to do that today?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. All right. So, gentlemen, and I use the term loosely. Let me give a little intro here. So we've seen Jeff's video board a couple times, and frankly, I think it's pretty awesome. Um, a very long time ago, it feels like, I started getting these emails from a guy in Argentina. And every 6 months or so, he'd email me and ask, is there any kind of modern device for saving and loading, right? Is there some, new disk replacement thing? And I would tell him, no, but there's these resources, and I've found all these articles and these interesting things that people have done that you could, sort of leverage if you wanted to go down that route. And I gave him some thoughts, like this was a few years back, and I was like, well, you could probably do something with an Arduino, and then the Teensy came along. I was like, maybe you could do something with the Teensy. Um, and so I would get these emails every couple months, and they were very excited. He was very enthusiastic, and I felt really bad because I wasn't giving him much help. So let me think about this. Last fall, last winter, I think it was. Ricardo emailed me and said, I've made a thing. The COVID gave him all kinds of time to learn how to, do stuff, circuit boards and programming in Python. And so he picked up the Raspberry Pi Pico, which is a little $5 board. And for $5, you get an amazing set of features, and what you can do with the thing is just so cool. Um, and he took this project that a guy in the Netherlands had done a number of years back for the Spectrum. And basically, the project that this guy had done was a little expansion board and I believe it was a serial. Oh, it might have been a parallel. Oh, it was. I think it was a parallel connection, actually, a parallel connection over to a PC, and then there was a server running on the PC. I think might have been written in Turbo Pascal or something. And so what you could do is, you could type some commands on your Spectrum, and it would load and save to your PC. And so Ricardo took this as his inspiration and replaced the PC with the Raspberry Pi Pico, and did the necessary voltage interfacing and some other stuff. And then also he reached out to Gustavo. Gustavo has been programming in machine language on our favorite computer for a very long time, since he was just above being a teenager, like most of us. And Gustavo really, really knows the ins and outs of the ROM and the XROM and the kind of things that it can do. Knows all sorts of stuff, and is he's my go-to person when I have a question about, well, what about this thing? How does that work? And so Gustavo and Ricardo worked together. Gustavo worked on writing some code that took up the used up the free space in the XROM that would let you talk to Ricardo's board using the regular load, save, verify, merge commands. And so they work together. And one of the things that was amazing to me is that Gustavo did not have access to his 2068 nor Ricardo's hardware. So he did this all on paper, hand assembled on paper, like, like they did back in the day. And every day, every time that, we talked to Gustavo about this, and he just popped off something off the top of his head, and you're like, what? So Ricardo reached out to me at the end of last yearish, and I said, well, you've gotten to a certain point, and I think what I could do to help you is hook you up with somebody who's also good with hardware. So I asked if it was okay for Tim too, uh, who's not been at some of our meetings recently, to come in and help out. And so for many moons now, every Wednesday night, we've been getting together on Zoom to talk about this project and push it forward, and report bugs and figure stuff out. And a little while back, Jeff got voted onto the island, and Tim had to step back because his work was killing him. And so Jeff came up to speed super quick. Also, we wanted to make sure that Ricardo and Gustavo's work was compatible with Jeff's video card work. And so Jeff took Ricardo's design and turned it into some PCBs, and overcame some hurdles in the past 2-ish weeks, and now has a working unit on his desk. How's that for an intro, Jeff?
Works for me. That's a pretty good synopsis of everything that's gone on. And I just want to jump in and say that I've been extremely blessed to have worked with this group. They're a bunch of really smart software and hardware guys, and I just stepped in when it was necessary. So I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind, David.
Yep, I got it set up, even though Adam didn't tell me.
Okay. Are you seeing my
I am.
screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a photograph I took of one of the two boards that I've built up, and this shows what the mass storage board, well, we'll have to come up with a better name for it, is right now. As you can see, it is all through-hole components, so it is buildable by the hobbyist, and the code for the Pico and for the Flash are on GitHub and will be available once the project is released for people to build themselves if they want. I expect, David, I'll put you on the spot here at some point. You'll probably have these available for as kits or as built objects, right?
Yep. For people who like to burn their fingers, it'll be available as a kit. For people who want to just plug it in, that too.
Yeah, kits are fun. I've learned to grab the correct end of the soldering iron 9 out of 10 times with no instructor assist, so I can guarantee that it's not difficult to build. At any rate, as kind of a tour around the board, the Raspberry Pi Pico has some. It uses its programmable I/O ports to interface with the Timex bus, but it also has does all of the heavy lifting for file access and for file storage. Right now, the files are stored in the serial EEPROM, or sorry, serial flash that's on the Pico. However, that is going to eventually be stored on the SD card socket that we have available. All of the code that that Gustavo has written to enhance the functionality of the XROM and the home ROM are stored in this 512K by 8 flash. There are commands that allow you to page this flash in and out if you want to use it for some other purposes, such as say for instance, a dock or a cartridge program. We also have the ability to put in an SRAM. Ricardo and I are working on that. It was actually just yesterday that we finally fixed an interoperability problem between my new design and Ricardo's old design, if you will, for the PIO pins on the Pico. So all of that's working, and with any luck, we should also be able to have 512K of static RAM on this board as well. For those of you, well, I shouldn't say that, for those of us who are crazy enough to want to run CPM on our Timex, or for whatever else you might want to do. So that's kind of a just an overview of the board itself and what's on it. And as I said, it's easily constructible by anyone. I usually do surface mount, and I was telling David, I forgot just how relaxing it is to build through hole projects. So I might have to do that more often.
Let me interrupt you just for a sec, Jeff. So, we're talking about it being a storage device, but there are just a ton of things that the Pico can do. And to me, that's one of the cool things about this, is that this device is really, it's just an interface to to a Pico, and it lets you do run code on the Pico and talk back to the 2068, and it uses a couple of IO ports to do that. So it's not just a storage device, but it's like an amazing experimentation board with a coprocessor.
Drew, thank you for bringing that up, because this thing could be a nightmare for people who, like us. Our wives will never see us again.
That's right. We're not responsible for that part.
All right, so I'm only going to have a short demo of the actual board in action, because there's still some things that are in process of being finalized. However, I'm going to reset my Timex, and you can see now with everything running, we'll get the sign-on message. Plus, we'll also be notified that the Pico interface is up and running. Now, the way that Gustavo has set up the interface, which I think is really, really nice, it doesn't use the restart 8 method of grabbing hold of the bus. He's done it a slightly different way. So once you've booted, and here's a demonstration of what's going on. Once you've booted, you first have to tell the system that you want to load from the SD card. So you type in save TPI SD card, and now the system is essentially set up so that any commands for loading and saving will be passed off to the Pico. And now we can, in this case, we can do a load. TPI is kind of your preamble to get to send a command to the Pico, and we're going to do a directory. Now the Pico boots up and goes to a directory called tap that is in the SD card. And so now we can get a directory of that particular subdirectory. Now, this subdirectory fits on one screen, but if you go to a directory that has enough files that would fill up the screen, there's a prompt at the bottom, and you can page down to the next page or pages of directory that you need. And so you can see in right now we've loaded some stuff into the Pico Flash to go ahead and load. Now, I happen to like Frogger, so in order to load Frogger, we're going to do load TPI : and file names are case sensitive. That's important to remember. Now, I just want to mention Frogger is a 38 KB tap file that contains 3 sub tap files. So if you were to do this by tape, we would adjourn, go have lunch, and then come back. So I hope I've got this right. I'm still learning this. Now, what this has done is it's mounted the Frogger tap file, and that's to allow the machine to automatically load everything else up. So we do load, double quotes, and we have Frogger. You can't hear it because I'm using my
Audio.
earphones, but the audio is playing.
Mm-hmm. Are you any good at this, Jeff?
I'm a hardware guy. I don't do software.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can see. So at any rate, you can see that this, as I said, is still kind of a work in progress, but it's rapidly coming to the point where the hardware and the software will be ready for general release. Even as it sits right now, it is able to allow you to load programs. I tried saving some today, and I don't think I know the magic decoder ring settings to do it properly. So but I was able to get it and save and load a program that I wrote, but sometimes it barfs and doesn't like that. So as I said, I think that's more me than it is the software.
And are we looking at this with your video?
Oh yeah, my Timex is the video display ranges somewhere between god awful and completely unusable. So yeah, this is my video card.
So Rui asked if it supports saving. Yes. Does it support TZX? No. But to me, this is the brilliance of the design. The code that runs on the Pico is all written in Python. So, and that like Jeff said, that's going to be up on GitHub. And you don't necessarily have to run whatever that body of code is. You can put your own code on there, or you can take that and extend it, right? So neither Ricardo nor I have spent any time trying to figure out how to load and parse TZX files, but somebody else could. And then that could get added to the feature set because it's open source hardware and open source software. So this is the result of many, many moons of work. A lot of hard, folks spending all kinds of time. And we are shooting to have it available by November. That's the goal. Waves or MP3s? No waves or MP3s yet, Mike. More likely a wave would be a easier format to support. And actually, there is another version of the hardware that Tim Horner has been working on that has one of the pins from the Pico connected to the ear port line on the expansion bus, so that you can load a program as a WAV file directly into the computer from the Pico. And
David?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Gustavo. Hi, remember that you can not lose the audio port. You can send the command TPI : tape and move the input output to the normal earphone and mic connector on the Timex. You can load a WAV file directly to the Timex and then save it to the Pico.
Yeah.
No in interface, but you can use both mode in the same time.
Yep. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I've been working today. I was working today on the documentation, and one of the demo programs that Gustavo included in the documentation is, in essence, how to port a program from tape to to a tap file. So you can load a tape and you can switch, which interface you're going to be save to the SD card, and then boom, you're done. It's really, really, really fun. And I put the link to the very minimalist website about this in the chat. And there's a form at the bottom where you can sign up for, just plug in your name and your email, and we're building a little email list. So when we're ready, we'll let you know.
David, can I ask Carl, would the Albuquerque group be willing to get a pre-production version of this thing to help us beat out some of the bugs?
I don't see why not. I'm sure Adam would love something like this to play with, since he's got more time, I guess, on his hand than most of us.
Yeah, and Adam, and it's funny because Adam is always the test case when we're talking about this stuff, and I'm like, okay, but it has to be masterable by Adam.
Yeah.
Adam has to be able to understand it and master it. Because he's, in a sense, he's the youngest of the 2068 users among us. He's the one with the least amount of experience in terms of, not having had one as a kid or something.
And I think it also kind of will give us a reference point, because we have the back bit, right? We know that's another SD card thing. We also have he has the div IDE, right, which is yet another SD card storage medium, right? Granted, it only works in Spectre mode, but the Twister board it works on the 2068. I'm pretty sure that he's tried it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it does. The only other kind of thing is, I got a couple questions about this. This is obviously an expansion board, right? I think this is meant to design to go into your expansion thing, David, that you have for the 2068.
Well, so that's a good point. I have a straight expansion board, and in the course of doing this, one of the potential issues that came up with was, what if you have two boards on the bus that both want to use memory, right? Like this one it swaps in for the home ROM and the XROM. That's what that flash chip is for, right? And it has that big old chunk of SRAM that Jeff put on. But at one point, Jeff had SRAM on his video board, and so it led us down the path of, well, how do we deal with that conflict? And so what we decided was, there's an unused pin on the expansion bus connector that is relatively close to the not BE line. And the way we've worked it out is that that pin runs the BE, the not BE line from any board runs to that unused pin on the socket in front of it. There's a little jumper that you can select which way it'll go to. And basically, the board furthest back from the computer is the one, if it wants to take over RAM, it's the one that gets to take over RAM, because that signal gets passed forward and every board in front of it sees that signal and gets out of the way. So we had developed a little protocol for attempting to minimize collisions.
So yeah, that kind of brings up, go ahead.
Well, and Carl, this is a board that I've designed that incorporates that protocol. It also, it has 4 slots for expansion boards, a legacy slot for, let's say, a disk drive port that, if you want to put it on the back. And also it has a relay that will allow you to power up the boards, including the legacy expansion slot, from an external 5-volt supply, so that you don't overtax the internal supply.
Okay. Because the other thing I was thinking is, I mean, if we could incorporate maybe some more, other board functions into this board, I think there's room. One thing that comes to mind is a Spectrum ROM. I think you probably have enough room right in that 512K. You could probably put a Spectrum ROM in there and then bank that in, so you could kind of make it a, if you wanted to boot into Spectrum mode or use the Spectrum ROM instead of the Timex ROM for a Spectrum game, that you could do that with this board, right?
Gustavo?
Yes, the Spectrum ROM, you can put the image on the cartridge. If you have a full 64K of RAM, you can use the 16 lower address to put there the ROM for Spectrum. And then after the switch, the input-output port, you enable in the lower part the Spectrum ROM. The Spectrum does not use the port 244 and never switch out this memory. This is protected by the input-output uses for Spectrum. And that is the way in order to put the ROM, the Spectrum ROM on the lower part. In parallel, I don't know if you can set up an image of the Spectrum ROM in the flash and then switch this specific part of the flash memory to the lower part. But in this case, you can switch the Spectrum ROM as a home ROM, okay? In my solution, you can put the Spectrum ROM in a dock bank. You have
Okay.
two
And-
options to change the ROM.
And
Okay.
Ricardo demonstrated this to us maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. He's been on vacation, but he did a little demo of booting up in 2068 mode, and then sending a command to the Pico to switch to the Spectrum ROM, and then loading something from the from the SD via in the Spectrum mode. It was really neat.
Right. Okay. Well, that's kind of one question I had is maybe we can incorporate, all these Spectrum ROM expansion boards, right?
Mhm.
So we don't have to have that anymore. This can actually do that function as well, right? So it can turn the 2068 into a Spectrum.
Yep.
The other thing is kind of goes to the maybe the expansion bus. So obviously we have twister boards, and this board here obviously doesn't have an expansion, because I think it was meant for, like you said, to plug into these.
Oh no, there's an edge connector on the back.
Oh, is there on that?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't see that.
Yeah,
No,
it's-
so yeah,
That connector is
Okay, on that
expansion of the
board.
2068 board. Yeah.
okay, on that board, but not on the Pico board itself. It's just got the one connector. So I guess maybe either on Jeff's expansion board, maybe we can on the right side or left side or whatever side makes sense, maybe make a Spectrum bus edge card, so that you can kind of combining a twister board with a 2060. You see I'm going with this, is you
Mhm.
kind of want to cover all those bases so that you can plug in Spectrum peripherals and Timex peripheral, right? So you're covering both bases with the one expansion board with that,
You say that the back side of this board, maybe you have two versions, one 2068 expansion or Spectrum expansion, or 2068 Portuguese version.
I think Carl's saying, on one edge you have like for instance, as it is now, it's sort of straight through. There's the connector that plugs into the 2068, and then the other end of the board is an extension of the 2068 board. But Zebra, a gazillion years ago, came out with this twister board. Of course, it was huge, but they came out with a twister board that did the same thing, but also had a right turn on it that had the Spectrum bus.
Hmm.
And that's how you were able to plug the Zebra floppy, the FDD3 into a 2068.
Right.
yeah.
No,
So
I
I'm just
use-
kind of I'm just kind of think, since we're kind of redesigning this, maybe let's kind of throw, I hate to say it, the kitchen sink at it. I don't think it's, I don't think it would really be a bad idea, because, otherwise you're going to have to, okay, I want to do Spectrum stuff, so I gotta put a twister board somewhere.
Yep.
Right. Well, let's just maybe think about combining all of that into this one board, and then everybody's issues or, you know, potential having to have more than one board kind of goes out the window, right? We've solved that problem. And I don't think it would be a problem. You know, the twister board just rearranges the lines, right, that go to the Spectrum bus. There's no new lines. Well, there's some lines in the Spectrum that 2068 doesn't have and vice versa, but
Yep.
you know, it shouldn't be, there's no logic involved there, right? It's just basically routing the lines to the proper place on the edge card connector that you'd have to create, right?
I guess it would depend on how their new scheme would work with that Spectrum bus, I suppose, if it had any effect on it.
Yeah, I don't think it would, because it's like, you know, this actually potentially could work on the Spectrum, right? If you hooked it to a twister board, I don't think it would, you know, it should probably work on the Spectrum as well. It's just the edge card connector would have to be, you know, changed to a Spectrum. But the main point is, you know, since we're hooking this to a 2068 and we want to potentially maybe use Spectrum, you know, peripherals in addition to 2068 peripherals within, you know, we that's why the twister board existed to begin with, right? And so I think if we could incorporate that into one of the boards, you know, either Jeff's expansion, you know, expansion board that this plugs into,
Mhm.
or maybe on this board itself. I don't know, on the Pico board itself, whatever, you know. But you know, we have to be kind of
Well-
cognizant of, you know, peripherals, you know, how big they are. I don't know that the right side, you know, having it on the right or left side of this board may be a good idea, because of some of those peripherals may hit the back of the computer.
Right.
They won't be able to fit in there, right? So, you know, there's things like that to consider, but
Well,
so
on the right
Jeff,
side, you'd probably have to, you know, I'll take that. I guess you'd probably have to get over some to have, if you want to make sure you were clear for anything that went on the right side.
right, if you're using the expansion board, but I think if you put maybe like a Spectrum edge card on top of the Pico board, then that, I don't know, that's kind of a cheesy thing too, because now that connector's way the heck up here, you know, way above the computer, because that board plugs in vertically, right, on that expansion
I
thing.
think that might speak to something I was going to bring up a minute ago. Was, to me, a case for putting as much into the kitchen sink as we can is just the number of little add-on doohickeys that do not have a pass-through. And when you want to put more than one of those on, it gets to be impossible.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, I can have this or I can have that, but I can't have both. And the existing expansion things don't solve that problem.
So Ryan,
Well,
can you-
Jeff's board does, because he has 4 slots.
3 slots, but they're not edge connectors for other peripherals that expect the edge connector. That's what I'm talking about.
what's
okay.
what's an example of an edge connector or a device that dead ends that you're thinking of?
Let's see. Probably stuff like this.
Well, but see that'll go away. that's
Well,
taken care
exactly.
of by the video board.
Exactly.
So you know, okay. So there's to me there's a couple ways to.
Well, okay, yeah, right. You're correct. We're absorbing this, so that one goes away,
Mhm.
and you can knock out several of them. I still think it would be kind of nice that, yeah, you've got the one in the back, so probably if we put enough in there, having the one on the back pass through then might be sufficient.
Mhm.
I always kind of thought, well, why can't we? What would be a good scheme? You know, like it's sort of that expansion board, but it gives you multiple edge connectors, but incorporating all the useful things into one device is a way of solving that.
Well, and Ryan, actually, I did a respin of that board, and it now has an edge connector, kind of like the well, it has an edge connector like the one that you know, is on the Pico board that Jeff showed, and it can either fit in a slot, or you can solder a you know, a regular edge connector to it, which is usually what I do.
I've got a gender changer that I made. It just sticks right into there, and then
Yeah,
from
and
the
that's what I was
back.
thinking too.
Just a little card about that big.
Yeah.
Solves the problem right there.
Yep.
Well, okay, then if those could be available, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say this to Carl and Ryan. It's a matter of time and money.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Well, I really meant to grab this guy, but
What's
I
that?
couldn't
What is
see
that
it.
thing?
That's
Back
the
bit.
back bit.
Let me spotlight you
Oh.
for a second, Ryan. Okay. All right. Give us a full 360 on it. All right.
Okay.
So the back bit that can plug on to the end, of course, and that would end that would end the chain. You
Yeah,
wouldn't have anything
everything, all these things are cabooses. So there's really not.
after.
But this peripheral is only input output. You can plug in. You don't need the twisted lines to plug in this or not. Just only the interface one or any mass storage device. You need the full address change for the 2068 to the spectrum. Normally, all the peripheral and 90% of the peripheral has only the input output lines, address and data, and also the 9 volts the powering. You need to put a regulator because the timer has 15 volts on the power pin.
Yeah, that's right. You do have to drop the voltage.
Well, here's it would not be that difficult to incorporate a twister functionality
Yeah.
as long as we'd have to look at the subtle differences between the spectrum and the Timex bus. But so I mean, all of this is possible.
And the
but,
beauty of it is that the board, the expansion bus board that you have right now, Jeff, that can it's not terribly expensive because there's nothing to it in terms of it's not populated with chips or anything.
No, but for example, in my case, I had the FDD3 from Portugal using on the Timex US version, okay, computer, and use the twisted board and also the interface for the system disk. That's worked perfectly. And also I have the ERCO disk drive. If I need to plug in both disk system at the same time, I put first the ERCO because the ERCO has the expansion of the bus on the back, and then put the conversion bus board and then the FDD3. That could be possible. If the chef create another version for Spectrum, for example, to get the expansion bus in the Spectrum mode or 2068 Portugal version, and we can plug in directly the FDD3 interface without any changes.
Yeah.
That could be possible.
Or just do another spin of Jeff's expansion board, but with Spectrum bus coming off the side, like Carl suggested, or a twister board that plugs onto the back with a Spectrum bus that comes off the side and continues the 2068 bus.
If you think to support the Spectrum, you need to support 9 volts too on the power pin.
Yeah. So you just put a voltage regulator in there as well.
And the problem is to replace the ROM because in the bus you have the ROSI select signal.
Yep.
Working in one. When you put in one there, you disable the internal ROM. You need to also disable the Pico ROM. You need to put a diode or whatever directly to the flash in order to deselect the memory selections. Okay. Also the VE.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the main point is I just wanted to bring that up, right? Just to put it into, into the brain sauce so that you kind of start, you're thinking about that for the final design, right? Let's figure out some way, I think, to incorporate some type of twister. In fact, maybe a slot or two on your expansion board, Jeff, could be actually Spectrum bus instead of Timex bus. So you could theoretically plug in, I don't know, I don't see really the use case for that, but maybe you could plug in a Spectrum card. The only one I could think of is maybe like a diagnostics cartridge, for the Spectrum like this, but it obviously has the the female connector, right? Not the male side.
You know what?
So-
The Carl, you know what? 'Cause I forgot about that. But what you could do is make a twister.
Stub extension board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then that
Yeah,
would
that would plug into one of the, it would plug in vertically, but go
Yeah.
have a horizontal port out the back, right? Or something like that.
horizontal or vertical. Yeah, either way. Yeah, that would be
Right.
a nifty solution.
And yeah, because I know I'm, obviously looking at your, your twister board,
Yep.
right? This is a twister board with the Spectrum ROM. So that this is kind of what my idea is. I'm thinking about is incorporating this functionality in that system
Yeah.
setup, right? So you don't have to buy this board anymore. I
Right.
mean, it kind of be not as financially lucrative, although these are probably you're now selling millions of these. But the other thing I was wondering is obviously, we're talking about just video board as a feature set maybe of this, but what if you didn't want to buy that and you still wanted to use the video that you've got on this that goes to the Spectrum HDMI thing?
Yep.
My kind of question there is, because we were doing stuff last weekend, we were trying to see if the audio was coming out of this,
Right.
well, or out of the HDMI, and it looks like there's traces here. I haven't tried this particular board, but we couldn't get the audio out. There is an audio pin, right, in addition to ear and
Yeah.
mic, which
Yep.
are separate pins, but the audio pin, or the sound pin, I think it's called, we were looking at the schematic and I was telling him, well, you can see where they combine the signals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So on the sound pin, you
But
should
why-
be able to hear your mic
Yep.
sounds and the AY chip sounds.
Yep.
Should be coming out of the sound pin. And because he was trying to capture some video, and of course he couldn't capture the sound because it was using the AY chip, so it wasn't coming out of the mic jack.
Yeah.
And I don't think you pull that pin into this 9-pin, mini DIN.
It goes in, but it might be on the wrong pin for the HDMI adapter.
Okay.
That's the
So
thing
maybe, that's
Yeah.
another thing, is maybe if we could figure out how to incorporate some maybe sound here. Maybe
Yeah.
have a 3.5 millimeter jack that's on this
Oh, that's a
board
good idea. Yeah.
that
All
you
right.
could plug in speakers, right? So that you can,
Yeah.
amplify the beeps and the AY chip
Mhm.
together, right?
The beeps and the boops.
The beeps and the boops, and
I want to attenuate them.
No,
Yeah.
you want that full volume.
unfortunately, there's no way to shut the speaker off inside the 2016. It's permanently hooked up.
Yeah.
We can't turn that off.
Just hold my beer.
So, I'm still thinking that maybe this is valuable if
Yeah.
they don't get Jeff's board. Once they get Jeff's board, then this is kind of redundant, but it's still another option.
Yeah.
Well, and one
Well,
one reason I mentioned my video board, and I forgot to also mention, the mass storage board will work fine without my video board.
Right.
So if you want to
Well,
use your
sounds-
Timex video,
It sounds like if you just had, as you were saying, David, I think, you have these card versions of these things, you could just slot that in instead, and then, or
Well-
the video board.
Yes. And so, Rui, can you show the thing that you're showing in chat? You were just talking about it, and I'm gonna go grab a board to show y'all.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I don't know what that is, but
Well,
obviously it's got a twister board there.
Yep, it's got some RAM. It's got a 60. That's a Hitachi RAM chip, and that looks like on the right hand side a flash chip. And I'm guessing the thing with the white sticker on it is probably an EEPROM. And then, like you were saying, Carl, that's probably video output on the left hand side. Those are
And
just giant
it's-
resistors.
And it shows use.
Hi, are you hearing me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. This is, actually, it's interface for Timex 128 to have compatibility with the Sinclair 128K. And who made it? That was Vito, not me.
Oh my gosh.
Together, he was able to hack and adapted for the another spectrum interfaces. But it was a bit of a hack that he did.
Huh.
He sent some materials from AliExpress, and he did this hack to connect another interfaces. And it is just like that for connecting other spectrum interfaces. I'm using another interface connected here for having an SD card.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's obviously a
it's,
spectrum bus because it only has the 4 pins before the
Yeah.
key. So it's probably, I'm assuming, a spectrum bus.
Yeah, but I'm using a TC, not a TS, okay?
Yeah.
And that goes to a
this-
TC
What's this?
2068, right?
Pardon?
That goes to the TC 2068, right?
Yeah.
Because the 2048 already has a spectrum bus.
This did
Oh,
go
okay.
to TC, and this one allowed me to connect a spectrum interface for having an SD card for loading software.
Okay. Interesting.
And this board use or emulate any storage or any, I
So
don't
this
know.
is for this got 128K memory and 4 ROMs. One of a couple of ROMs is for 128K compatibility.
Okay.
Okay. As a Spectrum 128, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's like a Timex 128. It's maybe 80% compatible or something like that.
Huh.
No,
Cool.
great.
Yeah, notice it has a DB9, which is probably, is that a serial port or a joystick port?
Probably joystick.
But
Joystick
Yeah.
port? Okay.
the expansion board, the expansion connector you have in the back is because the Timex computer has a Spectrum bus from the manufacturer. You cannot need switch any line. You put 1-to-1.
Yeah, basically that. Yeah.
Yes, in case that if you are using the US version, we need to change the position of the address.
Yeah,
And
that's in position. Yeah,
that's why Chef need to reroute the extension. It's not direct 1-to-1. Need to remap the address and also to get the compatibility with your
not
extension.
yeah.
No, the idea is to put our bus in the same position like you, for example. Okay, but maintain compatibility with the new version.
And I noticed too, there's a 3.5 millimeter jack. I imagine that's audio, right?
Audio, yes, and you got also and audio and video, RGB.
Yeah.
RGB, okay.
Yeah.
No, the idea for the interface for us is to continue with the 2068 deployment, because in the Spectrum world we have many options
Yeah.
and different solutions. The idea is to put an interface that only works on the 2068. This is for or wide or
a bit different
yeah.
animal, yes.
Yes.
Interesting board though. I don't know
So-
if there's any information somewhere on how that thing's built.
Ryan and Carl, here's my next version, the newer version of that expansion card. And so the video card, and I just solder a connector to these
Right.
lines, and instead of sticking being at a 90, parallel to the back of the computer, it sticks out to, but if you could just stick this into Jeff's expansion bus without a problem.
You'd have to cut the key though.
Oh yeah, I do need to
there's-
cut a key. Yes.
Yeah.
I gotta do one more thing to this one. Right.
And I do see the
Well-
sound line. I do see the sound line goes up and goes to the bottom pin there on the 4.
Yep.
And you have the 5 pin. So
Yep.
I have to take a look at that because we didn't get any sound out of this TV, right? So and I know I was looking at one of the Spectrum things. I took it apart because I'm working towards getting the RGB to his Amiga monitor, right?
Okay.
So I had a couple questions about the video on that, but anyway, I mean, I'm working through that. But it's the main one was the sound, and I noticed there is like mono sound, and there is a left and right sound that goes into this
Yeah,
the
the Sega connector, I think, only supports mono sound.
Okay.
I have a question. We have a same space between the slots. The idea is possible to put in a screw to pass all the boards and put in hard location the boards that improve the movement or to hangs any issue related to the and lost the connector.
a screw where inside the expansion board, so they can kind of
No,
be
no, no.
physically.
To pass all the boards a plastic screw with a separator in order to put a big screw to put solid 3 or 4 expansion boards
Oh,
if we have more than one.
yeah, I see what you're saying, Gustavo. You want something like a card cage to keep all the boards from wibbling
Yes.
and wobbling around.
Exactly.
But
That's if someone knows a 3D printer guy.
Oh, okay.
And what would life be without Rampack Wobble?
Wonderful.
Carl, I think you were asking about what that thing was, and I believe that is from Don Dindang Superflow.
Superflow. Mhm.
Yeah. I think I've seen one of those. It'll take me a bit to remember where I found where that was, but I remember he showed something similar to that at one point.
Well, that kind of brings a point about the video thing. So obviously, in this board, right, you're using the LM1881, right? I believe that's how you get the composite sync out of it, right?
Yep.
So I'm kind of looking at this board now, and I haven't hooked this one up, but this one, right, you have none of that stuff on there. It's only got 4 component, 2 resistors and 2 diodes.
Yep.
Yet you have the video out. So I don't know where the schematic for this is, but obviously you simplified it, or you figured out you didn't need to use an LM1881 anymore for that to work, I guess. I don't know, because there's a ton of circuitry that's on your old board, right, that it's gone. You didn't need it anymore on the new board, on the twister board. So
yeah, it's not entirely required, but I put it on in case, folks have decided that they want to use something else. Like you could, for instance, take the output, from that jack, and you don't have to put it into an HDMI converter. You can, if you have an old CGA monitor sitting around, you could feed it into that because the signals are there.
That's kind of what that old Amiga monitor is. It's a RGB monitor, right?
Right.
You can either have analog RGB or digital RGB, which is what the Timex is.
Yep.
But sync, right? When you're in digital mode, I think it only takes, or it may need horizontal and vertical sync. That's where I'm kind of playing around with this. Or maybe it'll just take composite sync no matter what and figure it out. I have the schematic for the monitor, but it's like, it's third party, it's very it's a compact schematic, and they go through switches, when you switch the different modes, and it's like, so I don't really know, I was just going to hook it up to his monitor and try it, but I couldn't get those connectors that you were using. Well, I ordered 3 or 4 times from Amazon, and they would send me something slightly different. It wouldn't fit. It's a 9-pin mini DIN, but either the pin was like offset, or I don't know, something wouldn't fit, and I was like, well, I can't really tell guys what exactly this is. I keep ordering these and they're wrong. So eventually what I did was I just, I've got this now, which is a SCART connector. It goes to the Genesis 2, right? So it has the connector that goes into your, your video jack. It's the right one. I've tried it. It actually plugs in and fits now. And then of course on the other end, I can do whatever I want with these wires. It has RGB and all that stuff, the audio, but that's kind of where I'm at with at least Adams, right? I mean, this will probably work for some other RGB monitors too if we get there, but it's like, do I need 75 ohm termination with his monitor? Do I not? Things like that. That's kind of why I got to breadboard this first, see what really works with his monitor, and then we'll go with that. But the sync thing was kind of nice because you could get horizontal and vertical sync out of the LM1881, even though you're not really using all of that, right? It's still, the pin's still there and it's still spitting out that information. But on the twister board, like I said, there's none of that. So you must be just taking the composite video
Yep.
out
And
of
the Sega devices will accept that. And
right,
figure it out for
and just
themselves.
figure out the sync from the composite video and just
Yeah.
throw away all the video information. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that his monitor will do that, but hey, I plan to try it on that board as well, because the pinouts are all the same. The RGB is the same.
And that's a
But the
9
other,
pinout,
go
right?
ahead.
That's a 9-pin pinout.
Yeah.
Is it? Is there any standard for that for RGB?
I don't think so. There's probably as many standards as there are monitors.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But
Well,
I mean, how look at it from a like a VGA monitor standpoint, right? That's analog RGB.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's probably some interface out there that somebody's made that converts digital RGB to analog RGB, because it's just, you're gonna have to have like some DDA converters or in there, something to get the natural voltage to, instead of 0 to 255, it has to convert that into an analog voltage, right? So, but there's probably something out there to do that, just so that we may be able to hook this up to maybe a VGA monitor. I just don't know about the refresh, the refresh rates, right? Because I think a lot of VGA monitors run up in the 31 kilohertz range
31.25.
instead of the 15 kilohertz. Yeah, instead of the 15 kilohertz, which I think we need this to work at for the video to work on this. So I don't know if maybe a multi-sync VGA monitor might work and go down that low, but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, most of them these days are going to be multi-sync, right? We didn't really have that problem. Well, we had that problem in the 80s when, we didn't have multi-sync VGA monitors, but I think ever since then, those are pretty much long and dead because they're kind of specific.
Yeah.
But once the multi-syncs came out, I think 90% of what's out there would be a multi-sync.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm doing with video wise. And then, like I said, the audio, we couldn't get any audio out. So I see that it goes to that pin. I didn't desolder the jack to see where it went. I guess I could have ohmed it out too and figured it out that way. But maybe we'll need to just jumper it over to one of the other audio lines and see if we can get it to come out of his TV.
Do you want me to send you one of these new ones without the mini DIN connector soldered in, so that you have just solder holes?
Well, that probably would help,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, but just because I would like to get sound out of it. Since you have it, you actually have a trace that comes off of that. We should be able to use that. That would be nice to actually hear sound out of his TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Which edge connector? You were asking about what the finish was.
It's probably just tin. We're not going to do the gold plated stuff, man.
Lead solder.
Yeah.
It's Mike, you're muted. So yeah, if you live in California, you can't buy this. It's not ROHS, whatever that is.
Right. No, the one of the reasons why I've shied away from edge connectors is because of the wear on the copper. And honestly, I don't know how to specify a board when I send it to the board house to get the right finish on it.
If you just make so what I did, and I suspect what Jeff did, is you can make you can just draw a rectangular spot on the, top and bottom solder layers, and it'll get coated with solder.
Right.
Yeah, I know there's a Hazel, right? HASL
Yeah.
option,
Yeah.
which is kind of made mainly for gold plated edge connectors, but that adds quite a significant cost when I tried it. It was like,
Actu-
wow, that's a lot.
Actually, yeah, Carl Hassel is hot air surface leveled. You can either get that tin or leaded solder. What you'd want is ENIG, which is electroplated nickel and gold,
Okay.
because they need to put a nickel layer down to act as a buffer between the copper and the gold, and then you need to specify the thickness of gold you want plated down there, and typically you go for like 30 micro inches or something. That's from way back in the day when I was using card edge connectors for work, and we got away from that quick.
Yeah.
And I know, like Jeff was saying, I tried that on one of my boards because I was making these little cartridge boards for the 1000. And God, that was like, the board was like, $2 before.
Mhm.
Doing the Hazel with the gold thing made it like, I don't know, $10 a board. I was like, well, we're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And from my perspective, I use JLC PCB. I use their easy EDA software, which is, runs in a web browser. And when I go to build the board, I, just click the buttons and follow the directions. But to your point, Carl, you get a series of radio boxes of, what finish do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And, I just pick, I don't remember what it is that I pick. Usually it's the one that comes with it. But I did, look at ENIG once, and it was prohibitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you only really need gold plated edge connectors if the board is going to be somewhere where it's hard to get. For our stuff, if you have a connection problem, you just cycle the board in the connector a couple of times and wipe it clean. And
yeah, we're a little bit better than, I mean, the technology has improved a little bit in 40 years.
Yeah, it would be nice. It would be a nice to have, like I said, if it wasn't so expensive to do. If it was like another $1 a board or something like that, that's reasonable. But when it's like 3 times the cost of a regular board, it's like nah, I don't think I want to. Especially since it's going to just be, well, no, I guess all the expansion cards will be edge. The edge will be what we're talking about here. It won't be a connector soldered onto them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you really want to do something like that, a Euro card connector is not that expensive.
That's true.
So
that's true. Yeah. Cool. Carl, Rui posted a link to the TMX 128K, which is the thing
okay.
built, and that then has a link back to Don's work on that GitHub page. But
where is Don? God, this guy just does all kinds of shit for the. Well, he has, been years and years ago. I don't know if he's doing much.
He's still making, stuff. He's still doing,
we should get him on we should get him on one of these calls.
I have tried multiple times, and he's not, he's sort of camera shy. He also, I believe he works for a microchip manufacturer that you probably know. And this is sort of a side gig for him, and probably doesn't really want to have too much attention called to it in relation to his main line of work.
Right. I get that.
But yeah, he's really prolific. He's one of his latest Harlequin boards is a TC 2048, and he's working his way closer to a I don't know if it's a Portuguese 2068 or an American 2068, but he has said that that is a thing that he wants to be able to have happen eventually. All in
That'd be
TTL.
nice. Yeah,
All in
that'd be
TTL.
right, because then if it breaks, you can actually fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since we can't get any more SCLDs anymore.
There are no SCLDs, indeed. Yeah.
But TTL is
got
even getting
two.
hard to get.
Uh-huh. Especially through hole. Yeah. Lots of parts being discontinued.
Although I can't think it's going to be that hard. I mean, the market's going to be obviously probably small for it, but just like the guy in Australia, I can't remember his name, that makes the ULA replacements.
Oh yeah, Charlie Ingley, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why it shouldn't be that hard to make a ULA replacement for the SCLD, right? So it's just the market there is tiny.
That's an understatement. Yeah. And to put it, and to replace it means desoldering, a surface mount part. Whereas with, the Spectrum and the the ZX81, you just pry up the ULA with a screwdriver.
Right.
And then, once you've desoldered that surface mount part, what do? Do you put a socket in?
Yes. That would be my recommendation. Then, because surface mount in the 2068 sense is really pushing it. But yeah, it is surface mount, but it's pretty big surface mount, comparatively.
Well, my question is whether or not the footprint for the SCLD comes even close to a standard socket. And my guess is that it kind of waves at one as it passes by. So.
Oh no! I actually have a couple sockets that.
Yeah, I think it's a standard. It's a 68-pin PLCC, I think, right?
Yeah.
Socket. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now those may be hard to get now too, but.
Well, right.
I got two of each.
Wow.
Did you also get SCLDs to go with them?
Yes.
See, Paul's your man, apparently.
Go
ahead.
I believe I have two sockets and two chips leftovers.
Wow.
Now, Paul, did you get those from the Cats group or some other way?
I have no recollection of when or where. All I know is they've been in a box for 20 years.
Yeah.
Or longer.
Yeah.
So let's see, the Fire was in 95, so that makes it what, 18, 20 years?
95? That's 30 years, Paul.
Okay, it's been in a box for 30 years.
Well, as long as you know where they're at, definitely keep a hold of those because, like I said, the SLD failure rate is not particularly high, but I have heard people say that their SCLD is toast.
Yeah, a lot of people, weirdly enough, that appeared to, in a lot of the newsletters, people would say, well, my SCLD died. It's like, I wonder, how they knew that.
Yeah, they might have replaced everything else and it still didn't work.
Right.
I mean, the other thing too that would be nice if somebody did do a SCLD, replacement in a FPGA or COPD, whatever, is we could redo the video where we could actually get a bright output out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't come out to a pin. It'd probably be like a pad on there you have to solder onto, but at least you could get that, right? And then that would make life a little easier for all these RGB mods because we'd have an intensity bit.
Well, what you could do is you could probably take a Pico and a couple of level shifters, especially if they're surface mount, make a circuit board just a little bit larger than the Pico that sits inside and monitors the in essence the attribute byte from the screen memory.
Yeah.
And spits out a bright at that point. And it wouldn't be expensive. I mean, it'd be a huge colossal waste of horsepower, but if it wouldn't be expensive, that's the That's the good part.
The other thing too, I kind of thought is, intensity obviously goes out through the YUV lines.
That's correct.
And so there might be some way we could, you'd have to actually look, you'd have to have a clock and be looking at that particular, the NTSC signal and seeing where the brightness of it is, because obviously the color is going to be a lower voltage for non-bright and it'll be a higher voltage for bright, but you would have to be able to sync up with those signals right on the analog outputs somehow.
Mhm.
That's just so that's maybe another, but the Pico might just be faster and easier.
There is a schematic on the internet, I think, for the MSX computers, and it's been a while since I've seen it. That does that. It takes the YUV and turns it into RGB. Oh, maybe it's Spectrum. Let me just.
Well, I still have that board that you sent me. I finished populating it. I got to actually hook it up now that I got a couple 2068s from Ryan that I need to test. So I think that may be the window of opportunity for me to hook these things up and see what they do.
Yeah.
And then plus I got that other one that uses the TMS. It's the TMS 9919 or whatever.
Yep.
Replacement boards, and I finally got, I've got those little bitty the mini heat plates.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
if
yeah.
you've seen those little things.
Yes, I've got
and
one.
and I'll tell you what, I bought two of them. I haven't used the second one, but man, I've built so much SMD stuff now just using that one. That thing is awesome. Just don't burn your fingers. But oh yeah, you put solder paste down, populate your parts, and you can just move the board on there and move it. If it's a little bigger board, of course you wouldn't want a huge board to do that. That'd be pretty ridiculous for that. But most of the boards I'm working with are pretty small, so I may have to move it twice to get both sides of the board. But that thing works a treat, man. That thing is pretty awesome.
How much does that cost?
I think it's. Yeah, maybe. I think it can't be more than 100.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's tiny. Literally it's maybe 2.5 inches tall, and its plate is 3 centimeters square. I think that's where the 30 comes from.
Yeah, it's pretty
tiny.
small, but you can move a board around on it and it gets hotter than hell, right? I think it can go up to I usually use it around 230, 250 C, but I think it goes up to 400.
Yeah.
It gets damn hot, man.
It sure does. Yeah, it's a nifty thing. So we've hogged up, an hour and 15 talking about this, and I want to make sure other folks, get to talk about the things that they want to talk about. Does anybody have stuff they want to share? Mike, you sent me your board. I haven't plugged it in yet.
Dave?
Yeah.
That I've spent a lot of money learning stuff that I've forgotten. I'm enjoying my board because I can send my listings and my print statements to the PC and then search those listings for keywords and statements and help me edit stuff, which is a lot better than 32 column. That's the success that I was looking for. But I was kind of hoping that I could be a blessing to some of you guys by providing that as a tool. And it looks like you guys are so far up in the stratosphere above me that I've got a lot of spare serial boards now.
One of the things that I thought about when looking at your board was, how can we turn it into a you have a right angle. I don't know if you guys can see this. You have a right angle connector, so it sticks up behind the the 2068, and the 9-pin is on the back side, which is good because the 9-pin facing forward would not work out so well. But one thing that you could do, Mike, if you're so inclined, is use the same sort of form factor that Jeff and I've been using for stuff like the Pico, where it becomes a thing that plugs into a slot vertically on that expansion bus.
Right. I don't have an expansion bus.
Well, we'll have to remedy that. Everybody will have to have one.
Mike, you just made the wrong statement.
Yep. Mhm.
I've done that a lot in my lifetime.
Well, at least that'll give you, that'll give you some more market for, your RS-232 board. It'll plug into this expansion that Jeff made.
Yeah, I'll
That's
use a different serial chip though, because the 6850s are getting very hard to come by. The RC 2014 guys are using the dual Z80 SIO chips. So I'm open to suggestions. If anybody wants to email some ideas as what ACIA or serial IO chips you would like to see on a board, I can set my mind to a target.
So, Mike, the 2050 modem used an 8251, and I don't remember off the top of my head what the port numbers were. It was like 77 and 73 or something. And the terminal software is written to talk to that, like so mterm and whatever else was written to talk to that. So if if you wanted to make something that didn't require a lot of extra
Frustration.
well, not so much extra frustration, but extra software to to talk to external devices, that might be worth looking at. And there were a couple of articles about how to do that, how to take an 82 how to take a 2050 modem board and leverage the 8251 to talk to a faster modem, like a 1200 baud modem, or even a real 300, a non, like a Hayes compatible modem instead of, or just use it as a serial port, hook it up with a serial printer.
Yes, and also the problem with this packet is the performance. The performance is too poor because it's thinking to use in lower speed. You can increase the speed. It's terrible because it's not use interrupt or whatever. This is very simplistic. The way to use the 8251 word.
I think it's limited to like 64 kilobits.
Yeah.
The 68B50, I'm running at 115/200.
Wow.
And difference is like night and day with the slower speeds. The lowest my board goes is like 1800, and it is like it's crawling.
Wow. Well, and that's a good point, Mike. I mean, and at our age, I mean, do we really have the time to wait around for 300 baud anymore?
So where were you getting your chips before, Mike?
Well,
you just had some, or?
I had two that had been in storage for like 20 years, and those went to prototyping and proofing, and then I tried to order another 5 through Amazon, and not one of them worked. So I bought 10 from Jameco, and so far every one that I've plugged into my test board has worked. These are the tech at Jameco admitted that these were removed from equipment, from socketed equipment.
Okay.
So that was a cue. If I was going to redesign the board, although the 8251 is a really nice chip, it's too slow for my blood.
Okay.
There are chips that will run a megabit, and that's what I'd be looking at.
Well, I mean, does Jamico still have stock of that chip, or did you wipe them out?
I think when I ordered my 10, they stated that they had 22.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just look online at Jameco and they don't have that many left. I hate to bring this up, but this might be a Ricardo request, because a $4 Pico
Yeah.
with the right PIO programming could act as a UART, and it has a USB. It has an onboard USB UART that would
Mhm.
allow you to communicate at 115.2, or you can jack that up. So it may be better to look at a more modern chip. You can make it look like an 8250 or an 6850 or whatever at the bus interface, and just let it do all the serial communication.
Well, okay. So I was just looking this up because I couldn't remember for a fact, but the 16550 is a replacement for the 8250. And the 16550 was real popular in PC hardware.
So
It's
is
not
that,
the direct register compatible. It's different. The compatible in software is W2123. This is a dual port. This is compatible with the 8251, but not the 16C50, because it's different set of registers.
Okay. Okay.
As far as using Arduino or Pi, my programming skills are fairly limited.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's why David was saying that maybe Gustavo, because he'd have to write the code for that, to emulate a serial port, that chip, and have a serial port available on that board as well. Again, that goes along with the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
so what do you know?
ability to plug in the USB port once you download the Pico code and use it as an I/O to your PC or whatever. That would be a dream. It would be something really worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's plenty
No.
of code space left in the Pico there for that kind of.
No, we have a direction to communicate the Pico board and also the Timex with the rest of the world. We are thinking on the IP world, not more serial, not more nothing. Just only output and input through the TCP/IP protocol. That is the way we are thinking.
Yeah, I'm just bit banging it straight across the RS-232.
yeah. Old school.
Well, I mean, why should I get into all the TCP/IP protocols when the serial port on my PC doesn't require it to talk?
You must have an older PC, Mike, if you have a serial port.
No, I'm using. No, I do have a serial port, and I've also bought a USB serial port that works just the same.
Okay. Okay. Like one of those FTDI devices.
It's got a Type A USB on one end and a 9-pin serial on the other.
Oh, 9-pin. Wow. Okay. Wow. So I don't know if you probably didn't know about this for the Arduino world. The Arduinos have a 5-pin connector, I think, maybe a 4 or 5-pin connector. And there was a point in time in which if you bought an Arduino, you also got the programming cable with it. And I have like 5 programming cables somewhere spread around my house that are USB, like you said, USB A to this little 5-pin header. And it's got a little little FTDI chip built into it. Shows up as a serial port. It's really interesting.
I've got 2 Unos.
Okay.
I believe they have the mini USB on instead of the 5-pin.
Yeah, okay. That's right.
Yeah, and I know, since I work for HP and we have a lot of commercial customers, and I'm close to Texas, there's a lot of gas and oil companies, right, that want RS-232 because they have ancient equipment out in the field for these oil rigs and the oil fields that use RS-232. However, I guess they were trying some of these USB ones, right, and they weren't working because I think they must use more of the handshaking lines, or, uh, they weren't getting fully decoded in
Mhm.
some of these cheaper USB to RS-232. I think there's some that work, but they're not cheap, right? They're not the cheap ones. I think they're the more expensive ones that even go out to a 25 pin,
That do full
right? So,
handshaking.
right,
Okay.
so they can get the full handshaking capabilities and everything on those. Just as a note, I don't think we need to worry about that, but like I said, 5 pins is probably going to be fine. Receive, transmit, and I think there's 2 handshake lines you kind of need.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff works nowadays.
If you're going to use a modem, then you're still going to need data carrier detect, and there's one other that I can't think of right now.
Yeah. Speaking of modems and remote devices and whatnot, I don't know if all y'all saw this, but Senan, who lives up in Canada, about an hour north of me, I guess somewhere that he stumbled across is discarding these old remote modems. It's got an RS-232 on one side that plugs into whatever the device is, and it's a industrial modem that I guess can call home and dump data and do whatever. And so he put a message out on the list about, did anybody want one of these things? And in a week or two, I'll probably go up there and pick up some of these things. So if y'all have an interest, let me know. If you want some wacky, bizarre, field deployable modem from the 80s or early 90s.
Ask for
What?
those.
I know I have looked at, since nobody has a landline anymore.
Right.
Well, I'm sure some people do, but they're not using computers if they are. Anyway, I was looking at some people have some YouTube videos out there of how to create your own POTS network, because they kind of wanted to use older PCs or whatever to actually dial into a BBS, right? And you kind of have to have that infrastructure where you can hook up the modem to a actual phone line, and I guess to hook it up to another computer that acts as the server. But there's some specialty equipment out there that handle the whole POTS, the plain old telephone system, handshaking and voltages and all that kind of, ringing and answering calls and all that kind of thing. And I don't know that this thing that you were, and I kind of looked at that listing and I was like, well, I don't know exactly what it can do. It sounds interesting. Maybe it'd be nice to have one just to see what it can do. But I just kind of just wanted to mention that I've seen some YouTube videos out there where they kind of explain the equipment that you're going to need, right, to set up this, the whole chain for
Yeah.
you to use a BBS like in the old days, because that's becoming a thing, I guess, kind of, maybe not a thing, but people want to recreate that BBS experience, which is kind of hard to do these days.
Well, Tim says he has one, and so does Rui. So, Tim, what's your phone number?
Well, if the Albuquerque group is really serious about this, you guys live close enough that you could just string cable between your houses.
Yeah. Oh my God, the local municipalities won't have a say about that.
I'm not going to give you my phone number.
It only needs 2 wires.
Well, but you still need some infrastructure there, right?
Hey,
because I did buy this thing from EDS, Electronic Design Specialist. It's I'd like to get the new one. It's called the Teletester 2.
Oh my gosh.
And I guess you can hook 2 phones up to it, and it's got switches on it where you can ring them, and it basically tests the. I guess it's kind of a pot system inside, but they have a third one that actually does more. And anyway, I had kind of been looking at making a pot system, because that would be kind of cool to actually be able to hook up these old modems, like a 2050, and actually call and log into a BBS that I had set up on my PC.
Well, so there's two kinds of modems that Senon has, and one of them is a higher speed device. And like most of you probably have some kind of hardware sitting around unused, you haven't powered on in 5 years. I have multiples of that sort of thing, and at least one of them has a serial port on it. And so I'm going to look into the cost of a landline and see about whether it's possible to put up a BBS. Of course, only Tim will be able to call it.
You could have done what I did, was work for the system and then retire. It's only $10 a month.
Damn.
And that includes the long distance, the free long distance.
Yeah, so that's the thing I was wondering about is, what is long distance on a landline these days, given that it costs nothing on a cell?
There's a minimum charge if you don't have long distance. Then
Yeah.
there's like a $5 charge, I think, for Continental Unlimited.
Okay.
Now, if you're a senior citizen, ask if they have a senior citizen rate.
Well,
But some systems do.
Paul, that may be, a significant number of people on this call.
Well, it's just a suggestion. You should ask.
Well, and I kind of do have a landline because I use DSL. That's I don't use cable internet, so I'm using phone line, right? But there's 2 lines that they moved in, so there's 20 megabits per line, so I got 40 megabits because they join them somehow. ASDL join. And so I do have phone lines to my house, but they're not used for the phone.
It'll carry voice over it as well.
Oh,
okay.
DSL and voice go over the same wire.
Right. But I totally turned off the phone part of it, right? It's just purely DSL now.
Well, yeah, because then you're not paying for that part.
Right, exactly. So I guess I could get a landline again, but yeah, once you get the cell phone, go ahead.
The Bell system wants to get out of that business.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought maybe Carl, if you had an extra pair there, we could set up some sort of radio link.
Yeah. Put up a Yagi antenna.
Hey, I finally figured out what this guy in my box was.
An 8250.
Hey,
and now you know what to do with it. I want to just make sure, Jeff, Tim, Joe, Paul, Willie, Bob, Mark, Larry, anybody have anything that they want to jump in on, report on? Brian, anything y'all have been up to?
Well, I had a bunch of things die. I think I mentioned some of that last time. My 2068.
You killed it?
Because I was shuffling the back bit, and the key came out of one, didn't notice, put it in the other. Instant death.
Yeah.
So Carl's gonna tell me the good news.
I've got 2 of it as well. I'm sure the 2068 works, but yeah, the one that you did this on. Hopefully there's nothing bad about it, but I've got hopefully I can do that this week, this coming week.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of hope.
Well, Paul apparently has 2 SCLDs sitting around.
I might even be able to know which box they're in.
Yeah,
we about that anti-static box that I've got. I believe there's Airco chips in there too.
Oh, crazy.
You should
Yeah,
be able to
we
fund your cruise.
we may be able to, we may be needing one of those SCLDs, maybe.
Well, I mean, that's why I gave him one for parts, but I got some others that I acquired years ago for parts. It's just that, I'd never opened that computer. And then in short order, I fixed the video coloring and then killed it after decades. I also apparently killed the teensy on this little rig.
Oh my gosh.
Just as I got it working, and then I soldered it up, and apparently I blew the teensy, which was just I got the programming so that this is what I was using the micro switch for, is
Yeah.
plug this in and then just use this with your emulator.
Oh, interesting. You could almost
gotta
run an
get
emulator on the teensy.
Yeah, well, there's other configurations. Was telling Carl about some, like, I know some people, what they've done is they put a Raspberry Pi inside a 81 case. And I thought, yeah, okay, so you could use something
like that,
something like this for the keyboard in the case. And then I thought it'd be cool to be just run a Raspberry Pi like I do, but it's just inside a ZX81 case for the hell of it.
Well, and Ryan, you have done the exact same thing that I have done, which is you take your, whatever, and solder it directly to, the thing that's kind of volatile and potentially fragile, and then destroy that thing.
Yeah.
And then you learn the lessons, like, oh, maybe I should put pin headers on that next time.
Well, I was going to do that, but I didn't know what I was going to do for final configuration. So I thought, well, I'll just do this for now and then think about it. And I don't know if it was doing that or something else that killed it.
But what he was trying to do is he's trying to use the ZX81 keyboard and convert it to PC commands so that he can use that with his emulator running on the USB. He's using it on his Raspberry Pi, but it converts the ZX81 keyboard to a USB port so that it can go directly into an emulator. So that way you don't have to figure out where all the keywords are, right?
Right.
You actually have a real keyboard that you're using with your emulator.
I started with, one is just because I didn't think I was going to use this micro switch one on any of the 81s because it's, bulkier. But so I thought about repurposing it. But then the code I got for the Arduino, apparently, I'm not sure how it was working, but apparently it was written for using this as a PC keyboard. So I think it was mapping all these keys and keeping track of the function state to actually use it as a PC keyboard.
Yeah.
And then had crazy mappings of, other symbols this doesn't have onto, edit and then and two, and you have to memorize that, I guess. But so I had to just redo all that. So it's just sending the key or the shift key, which is what the emulator is expecting.
So, Ryan, and this is a good segue. The guy Randy Kindig, who does the Floppy Days podcast, had asked on the email list if there was a Discord, and Louis Floret popped up Discord, and so there's, I don't know, 4 or 5 people in there, one of whom is a guy named Brendan, and he is apparently responsible for a thing called the Pi key, which is some kind of adapter. Oh, let me press enter. Some kind of adapter that lets you take a keyboard that's, not a PC keyboard and turn it into, some kind of PC keyboard. So in his case, he used, he did it for the TRS-80 MC10 micro color computer, and put a couple joystick ports on it.
Got one of those.
And so he's talking in the Discord about doing the same thing for the 1000 and the 2068, but they're starting with the 1000. So if you did not join the Discord, go join the Discord. It's kind of interesting. It's just yet another channel in which you can.
Yeah. Do I need another inbox?
You need another inbox. Exactly. That's the thing, is I have my computer on and it makes these weird boop noises. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And I look over, it turns out it's Discord, when somebody makes some sort of message. But it's great. It's another inbox. That was exactly what I was thinking as well.
Or put another way, it's another
dilution
third-party service to host stuff that ultimately will go away one day.
Yeah.
Another way of looking at it.
Yeah, that is exactly my concern, is that it will ultimately vanish. Like, when Yahoo went away, both Adam and I uploaded whatever Yahoo would let us download. There was a point where you could get this giant bulk file, and so most of the emails, most of the files, whatever, are up on archive, but you can't parse them, you can't read them in threads. It's yeah, I'll stop complaining.
I sort of roped Carl into my I don't know what you want to call it, that kind of thinking thread when we were together last, and that ultimately seems like everything's going to go away. And of course, when all the stuff we're interested in now goes away, it goes away with us, and there probably won't be anybody behind us that
well, it's kind of ironic,
except some historian.
Well, it's kind of ironic because I used to use the first thing I've used voice like that was TeamSpeak, right? Because I play video games, and games back then didn't have voice integration that were built into the games. So if you wanted to talk to the people you were playing with, you would have to use TeamSpeak, or Ventrilo, and eventually kind of Discord kind of is another one of those things, because all it is a voice. Well, I think you can do more with it, right? But main thing is you get in there and you can talk to other people that are interested in that subject that you made the Discord for.
Yeah.
So I don't know that would go away, because it's just another social. It's a social channel, right? It's just a social thing. And so, but it's a good idea, I guess, because it's instead of having these meetings twice a week or twice a month, you can just pop into the Discord, and maybe somebody else is in there, and you guys can chat about stuff all the time, or anytime.
Yeah.
Or since this guy's making this Pi key or whatever, maybe he can give you some pointers, or you guys can work together on it to get it to maybe do what you want it to do, Ryan, right?
Like ICQ.
Oh God. Well, that was more of a text thing, right?
Yeah, that's what this is.
Chat, yeah.
That's what largely what Discord is threaded text chats or chat channels, whatever. Yeah, it's very similar to ICQ. But I guess you can do audio, like you said.
Oh, really? I didn't know you could do that with Discord. I thought Discord for me is audio. You log into a Discord server and everybody's chatting in there.
Oh, how bizarre. Yeah, I've never experienced it that way.
Really?
Yes.
But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. Discord has all the threads, and you can do stuff in there too. But you obviously can talk. You can join a channel and talk to other people on that channel.
Yeah. Let me take a moment to talk about our next meeting, which is on the 4th, Labor Day. So bring your hot dogs, bring your beers. I dug up somebody to come talk to us, a guy named Steve North, who is a comedian and a comedian coach, or comedy coach rather. But way back in the day, he wrote a couple of pretty cool games for the 1000. There's a football game. Let me go to his webpage and I'll.
You said you dug them up, hopefully not literally.
But yeah, exactly.
With this demo, you never know.
You know, that's right. It's always touch and go. All right. I gotta think
Oh,
about-
by the way, David, is this real football or is this that fake stuff with the?
No, he's
round-
American, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's American.
Football coach? Was that the
no.
program?
No, that's a British football. All right,
There
let's.
was a printout or something for an American version. I saw
Was there?
somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, we
So-
call that British football soccer here, right?
Yes, I know.
Well, and the Brits used to call it that too.
Soccer.
It's actually their word,
Okay,
but
so
everyone forgets this.
this is the one that I was thinking of, this NFLX football, and I believe it's kind of strategy based where you get to call the plays. I've not actually played it to any extent. So he wrote that. He wrote this Miner's Revenge. This one I like. You have to make an emergency landing at an airport that no longer exists, Denver Stapleton Airport, during a thunderstorm. And then there's this 1988, what was once the future, Olympic bobsled event.
Mm.
Representing the Jamaican team.
Right. And so these programs were released by he wrote them, and then Fred Nackbauer mostly marketed them. And Fred was one of the guys involved in Sinkware News and a bunch of other stuff. Fred was really, really knowledgeable about the 81 and the 1000. So
When I send you the chips, I'll send you the picture of Fred, Tom, and the other guy.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I've got a picture of the three principals from Sinkware News.
Oh, very nice. I think I know what picture. I think that got printed as a black and white picture in the magazine at one point.
I got it color.
Cool. Awesome. And then in October, I don't know which one of the two meetings in October, I got a hold of Jeff Street. And for those, of you who don't know, Jeff worked for Stewart at Zebra. And one of the things that Jeff wrote, although he says he doesn't remember doing it, was the OS 64 for the 2068.
It's a hard thing to forget. But
I know.
maybe he's had a rough life. I don't know.
Well, so when I was talking to him on the phone, he's like, yeah, that was 3 lifetimes ago.
Speaking of Zebra, well, I don't know if you had more to say there, but
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was looking at something because I know Adam was kind of messing around with joysticks on the 1000, right?
Yep.
He couldn't find anything, and I noticed that Zebra made a joystick adapter.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't know what's under the cover. I just see the picture. I think it was on your site.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the circuitry is there, but I think it went to the arrow keys, or I think it said you could actually program it somehow to use different keys. But I don't know if we have any information on that, or Stuart hasn't been on these for a while, or maybe he was when I wasn't here, but I haven't seen Stuart on in a while. I don't know if he has any information on what went into that joystick adapter utility, peripheral, but that may be something that that would help Adam out in trying to use a joystick on his 1000 with some of these games.
So
right, that he's always.
What I know about it is that it uses port 1D, and for reading it.
Yeah, because it had a little machine language basic program that you could type in. I saw that.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't disassemble it, but obviously that's what that is. And
yeah.
I was just kind of wondering, maybe we could recreate that. And
Absolutely.
then, unless somebody's got one of those things laying around somewhere, and if they do, they're probably buried underneath all kinds of other crap and they'll never know. But anyway, not like we're going to find one somewhere in a short period of time. But I was thinking about that and him trying to, he likes to use the joystick all the time. So it would be kind of interesting I could see myself using that on like 3D Monster Maze, because 3D Monster Maze, for those of you that played it, because I used to love that thing. You can't just hold down I think you can.
You can hold
I
down
tried.
key?
I thought I was trying to hold it down and it wouldn't move, but maybe I was hitting a wall. But I think you can hold it down and it'll just keep going down the corridor, if you hold the key down. But you can't push two keys at once, right? You can't like go forward and turn, and they have to be individual key presses on those 3 keys, right? Because there's only 3 keys that control that thing: forward, left, and right. You can't go backwards. You have to turn around,
Turn around.
rotate around, and
And what keys does it use?
uses the arrow keys on the keyboard, the
Okay.
5, 6,
Seven,
or 8 or whatever. Yeah, whichever ones. So I think that joystick adapter would work.
Yeah.
But we just don't have one.
Right.
It'd be nice to see if we could rebuild that, because I'm sure it's not that complicated.
Well,
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. What would a joystick adapter go out the back of the?
Yeah, it
Mhm.
plugs into the back.
And
Yeah.
then like your little joystick will then go into that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, I sent you so much stuff that something might be like that coming.
Okay. I'll keep my eyes open. And that reminds me that Willie designed this little teeny tiny expansion card for the 1000. It's only got two connectors in it. And fortunately, we wouldn't have to, make it Spectrum compatible. But,
I'd like to see you try that.
if if we can figure out, what's a good common sort of standard for the joystick, like does it just support 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? And then what's the fire? Is it 0? Is it whatever? Or is it mappable? In which case, to me, it seems like you'd want to put like an Arduino in there to do the reading, and then spit out the key lines that the 1000 wants.
Wasn't that
It's
the
possible.
anarchy?
Sorry.
Well,
Was it? Go ahead.
I was going to say I understood that the Zebra one was remappable.
It's not mappable, but it came with instructions for patching games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that's the big thing, is that any kind of joystick thing would have to be remappable, because all the different games use different keys, right?
And Carl, there was one available in England that was like that, and it had this like square pegboard, and it came with little wires, and you would put in jumpers, for whatever the game was and whatever its keys were.
Okay.
But that can be done with like a matrix switch chip, which I stumbled across somebody doing something interesting with one of those the other day.
Yeah, crosspoint switch.
Yeah, crosspoint switch. Thank you. Yeah. I thought that was a pretty nifty solution.
Yeah. Well, it's just something I saw that I thought it said it was remappable, but like you said, maybe it gives you some instructions of how to change the code in the game. But I know that Adam was looking for something like that, a joystick adapter for the 1000, right, or the ZX81.
Yeah. That
allowed you to use like an Atari joystick, which is what the Zebra says it uses, any Atari compatible joystick.
Yep.
So it'd be nice to see if we could find one of those things, or maybe the schematics for it.
Oh,
Did you ever see one of the Radio Shack command sticks?
Is it the one for the color computer with the?
Yep.
Okay.
They
So
work too.
Well, yeah, it works with actually Zebra's analog input card that they sold with the touch tablet. Mark found this thing. I'm going to show you all so you can see the craziness of this device. Is that it? I think that's it. Can I get a, oh, I don't think I can get a bigger picture. I just have to get a bigger picture the hard way. There we go.
Oh,
And is that, I mean, is it every, oh, it's for the spectrum. But yeah, it's to look at maps. You can see it maps to, oh, it's not going to get
okay.
But
Yeah,
you
you plug the connectors into the key that you want it
oh,
to,
good grief. That's even worse.
because
Oh,
it has like
Nice.
it has like up, down, left, right, F1,
Yeah.
F2 on the top up there.
Yeah.
And I guess so that corresponding cable goes to what key you want it to press when you
Yeah. And
Wow.
and Carl, it has an expansion connector on it. I mean, at a
oh
right
yeah.
angle.
Yeah. Oh, and David, scroll up. It actually won an award for best hardware add-on.
Yeah, well, from crash readers. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't work on the ZX81. I mean, you have to obviously make the edge connector proper.
Smaller
But
edge connector. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why, like you said, why it wouldn't work. Oh, good grief.
wow, that was cheap. 17 pounds, 18
Yeah.
pounds.
Well, you
Back
could,
then, it
looks
was
like
like
you could,
$4 a pound, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
don't
right.
know. Well,
Probably about 270 as I remember it. So.
Yeah, it was pretty,
I think it was closer to 2, really.
yeah. that's cool.
ComCon.
No, you could remap that on the fly, it looks like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With, for loose definition of fly.
You could,
That's-
Ryan.
You
That's the
notice there's no
true-
anchors on the box end.
Sorry?
That's
No
No
strain
anchors?
reliefs.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's the true case of a flying lead. That's there you go. That's what they
That's-
call flying leads.
Oh my God. What a, yeah, I had not actually seen this in a long time.
That is that's an interesting way to do it. But yeah, these days, a microcontroller could easily. It's just you'd have to write the software to interface to it to tell it how to do all these things. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And run that matrix switch.
Right.
Cool. Well, we've done it again. We've run out of time. How does this happen? We just get started and it's like, oh, look, it's 4:00.
You can't put pause on the time. Time
right.
just keeps going.
That's right.
Time keeps slipping into the future.
I was going to say, didn't Steve Miller have something to say about that?
Mhm.
That proves that time travel is real.
Well, I'll tell you what, for every time we do one of these, I feel like I'm 15 again. So
Well, why do you think that the Albuquerque meetups last all day?
oh man, that must be awesome. That must be fantastic.
And the other thing too, David, you probably saw that, but just a plug for his his Andertone site, because I had been looking for a external keyboard, right, that they used to sell back in the 80s,
Yeah.
right, and I'd seen some on eBay, and it's like some of them were just horrible shape, horrible
Okay.
condition, and plus they wanted a stupid price for this piece of crap, right? I mean, yeah, sure, it was what it was, but it's in horrible shape, and you want $200 for it. I'm like, come on.
Right.
But anyway, so he had what is it? I think it's a Sun.
Suntronics.
Yeah,
Yep.
the Suntronics keyboard with I guess an unknown condition 81 in it.
Yeah.
I guess you didn't try it out or anything, but
Yep.
But
It's
I
been
bought that.
rehomed to you.
Yeah, but I bought that from him, and it's like David mentions somewhere in there that he's basically kind of doing that since he comes across a lot of these oddball products for the Timex and Sinclair stuff, that he puts it on his site. But I don't think a lot of people know about your site, so that they can kind of keep a tab on it, and maybe because he just I paid $75 for that thing, which to me is reasonable, right? I'm not going to pay $200, $300. Some of those things are going for outrageous prices on eBay.
Yep.
So So he kind of cuts the eBay out of it. He sets a price that's fair for everybody, right? For us and for him. And, so definitely check out that, he's got software up there. I don't know how you got some of those, software things, but what else did you have? You got computers. You've got a Harlequin up there right now, I think.
Yep. The one I showed earlier. Well, and so to your point, as long what I do is, take pictures of it. If it's software, extract the software if we don't already have it archived, right? In all ways possible, document it so that it's preserved, and then it does not need to stay in my house. It can go to someone else's house.
Banana boxes are great.
You're right, exactly. And so I put stuff up, and then it funds this.
Yes.
It makes this possible, and it keeps the website going, and it pays for shipping. When somebody wants to send me stuff, and I can reimburse them for shipping, if that's a thing that they want. But my goal, of course, is preserve all the things Timex Sinclair related. And also what it has gone towards is facilitating the meetings with Ricardo and Gustavo and Jeff and Tim, and paying for a GitHub account so that that they can work within GitHub and do the do that project stuff. And so it gets plowed back into this in some way.
Yeah, so that's kind of another reason I don't mind, buying this stuff from David, because I know, it's helping to fund this, other than just, a lot of the times with the IO, because even the IO groups needs money. That has to get renewed every year.
Well, that's a different David who's running that, and he only dips into the group once in a great while. And
I thought you were running that.
No, I'll email him again and see if what we can do to get a paid account going there. But he's a little hard to get a hold of. He sent us the one message and saying, we're getting full up, and then kind of took a vacation.
Oh, so I guess we're on a free account then, and that's why we're getting full up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so but that David is in Austin, and so he's a little harder for me to physically get to. I have to call him on the phone or something.
Well, maybe he can transfer ownership to you or something.
Yeah, maybe we can get something sorted out. That'd be good to get it, get those extra features, because well, it'd be nice to have the extra features, but then the problem of GitHub and being a closed environment, and when it goes away, how do we get that stuff back out? But at least not get the warnings about sending images and stuff. All right, gentlemen, go enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Tim, have you had lunch yet? Is it almost time for lunch, Tim?
I was actually eating lunch as you were talking.
Usually Tim tells us, promptly that it's lunchtime, I gotta go.
My stomach rules things. So yeah.
I hear you.
He's a QL user. He's used to multitasking.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mark is telling us that it's late for him, and we need to wrap it up because his battery's dead. So see you in 2-ish weeks, roughly, on the 4th, Labor Day. Come by after you've had your hot dog with your family, or whatever it is you do on Labor Day.
Later, bye.
See you guys.
Bye. Thanks, guys.